Now, do you want to hear a story?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a field near our place, and years ago there were poor people lived in it, and they died. And I think they died during the famine, and the field was always called it was called the hungry grass.
But what is a famine?
It was years and years ago. Well, there was loads of different times in Irish history, and obviously in other countries as well. They have famines as well. It's when there's a shortage of food and people have nothing to eat, and that's why I always say to you, never waste food. There was a neighbour. What?
Like,
There was no food. There was not a bit of food to eat. Nothing. People
not
couldn't.
even like a crumb.
Nothing. See, you're so used now to going to a shop and buying stuff. In Daddy's time and Granny's time and Mammy's time, they had to grow everything, and if they couldn't grow the stuff, then they weren't going to eat. So they grow spuds and then they store them in spud pits, or they kept the onions up. And there were certain things, obviously in Daddy's time in the 1950s and 60s, they would buy certain things with flour to make what do you call it, or they'd go to the mill and probably get the flour ground or corn ground. But it was real basic stuff. They had nothings in tins and jars. They made a bit of sugar and tea, but they wouldn't have anything like the way we do it in our press. They certainly didn't have chocolate. They wouldn't have had mate. They wouldn't have anything like that. Never, never, never.
Only if they had like a gun or something, but you wouldn't have enough money.
Well, if they had a gun, they'd be able to go out and shoot a rabbit or a duck or something, or a pheasant, and they'd be able to give it a mate.
Well, definitely not a pig, because someone could own a pig.
Well, no, you couldn't shoot pigs because it wouldn't belong to you, yeah. So that was a famine. Now, there were loads of famines in Ireland, and most of the time they were brought on by, basically, there was food in the country, but the English or the landlords at the time were making the people
Giving the food.
Basically people had to sell their food to get money to pay their rents. So it was absolutely ridiculous. And people said they remembered seeing food leaving the country while people were starving on the country of Ireland, and we had to go off to America and off to Australia and off to England to try to or into the towns and cities around Ireland, into workhouses, to try to live. And there was a neighbour of ours when we were little called Mrs. Lynch, and if we came up and if you threw a crust of bread, not the way Eppie was eating her toaster now, you would not be allowed to throw a crust of bread on the ground. And they said it was a mortal sin if you threw a crust of bread into the fire. If you threw bread into the fire, it was the worst thing ever. It'd be absolutely terrible.
Because that would be wasting food, and the famines would need food years ago, or if the famines were still there and you threw in a piece of toast, well, you shouldn't have, or anything, because
people be starving.
The famines could have got that. You could give them to the famines.
It's not called a famine. The thing is, when there's a shortage of food, there's a name for it, and it's called a famine. So people were hungry.
Yeah.
Now there's loads of people around the country now as well that are hungry tonight too, still, and use of all that food in the presses and all. But listen, there was a field near us, and the field was called the Hungry Grass. And in that field, basically, there was people lived there years ago, and it said people died there. And they say that if you cross it any time, you will get hungry. And you're always meant to bring, there's a great hunger comes on you, they said. And you're always meant to bring bread with you in your pocket if you had it. And sometimes when you're going past it, you throw a bit of bread onto the ground. And that was to keep the poor people who are, the poor people who died, keep them.
Maybe in their souls,
Yeah, their souls that were
they
there.
They would be eating it, in their soul or something.
Yeah. But once we were out in when was it? I was during the big snow of 82. We were out playing, and there was a bit of snow, but we was about 3, 4, 5 fields in, good bit in from the house, and the snow came real quick, and we said, "Oh, just better go." And then the big wind come, and the snow came down just like that, bang, and it came down by maybe 2 foot of snow, and next the wind came, and the wind blew it in drifts, and next minute there was a big wall built up of snow, and we were so small. It was me, Jenny and Anne, and we couldn't see where we were going, and we said, "Jeez, what are we going to do? So we just couldn't go any further. We couldn't see a thing. We couldn't get back to the ditch where we were. It was surrounded by snow. And we all sat down, and we got in up by the ditch, and we got underneath where the what do you call it, the old briars now, or down the gripe. So the snow wasn't falling on top of us, and but it was this big massive wall of snow. And we said, what are we going to do? And there was no phones then, we had no ways of contacting anyone. So all we could do was cuddle in, and three of us cuddling together with our coats on us, cuddled in real tight. And one thing I had was a little tiny box of matches that I had taken from Dickie. Dickie smoked at the time. So I said to Anne, quick, if we don't get the fire going, we're going to freeze to death. So she said, right. Anne was all good at work. Well, I was good at working. So we went off anyway, and we didn't, like, it was only like the size of the room here, but we were able to break little branches off the trees and bits of sticks and stuff like that. And you kept using the matches, one light, one match, and the fire go out. And I went through the whole box of matches and the fire hadn't lit. And I was down to my last match, and I lit it, and I held down to the little stick, and next to the stick started going fire. And next I kept blowing on it, and fire got bigger, next I got more sticks on it. So all of a sudden we had a biggish fire, not a real big fire. The poor old Nellie was worried about us, but you know what, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't get through the snow because the whole house was covered up. They couldn't even get out. And she was at home praying, going, what's going to happen to him? And Dickie, no, get out, no, they couldn't even get out to get to get anyone to get help. So she said, Mick will be grand, Mick will be grand, Mick will be grand, it'll be grand. So I was about 7 or 8 at a time. So we all cuddled in anyway, and the fire was going around the fire, and it was actually made it nice and cosy, and we got some branches and trees, and we put them all around us. Now we were grand for water, right, because we could melt the ice in our hands and drink the water like that, so we wouldn't be. Now it was beginning to get dark. Now normally we were getting a bit of supper around 6 o'clock, and we were kind of getting a bit hungry, and we just sat around there, and we said, I'm getting a bit hungry, I will be grand. And then it was dark by this stage, and then Anne said, I'm hungry, I miss Mammy, I should have been 9 or 10. Miss Mammy.
Are you older than Anne?
Younger.
Oh.
And we said, we've no food at all. But I said, oh God, I had always a little bit of food in my pocket when I'm going by the hungry grass field, and I had my pocket and a bit of bread, and we shared the bread, and with the last bit of crust left, right? And I said, no, listen, I'm not going to eat all this now, because I always throw this in for the poor people who died here years ago. So I got the bit of bread and I threw it out into the grass and said, that's for ye. So we all cuddled up, we fell asleep, and we kept the fire going at night, and the daylight came and we woke up and our bellies were rumbling, and because we were hungry, and the fire was going, we still could no sign. And we looked over, and here wasn't there some fresh bread, there was butter and jam, and there was kind of plain biscuits, and there was a thing of milk. And we said, where did they come from? How did they come here? Look in there.
It could be like magic. Was it near like Christmas?
Yeah, it was. It was December time.
It could have been from Santa trying to help you to not die or anything.
I think it was from the people who'd lived in that field before.
They were trying to help you because you tried to help them.
Yeah, exactly. So we said, God, we were rubbing our eyes, is this real? So we ate it, and it was the nicest, freshest bread, brown bread with butter and lovely fresh strawberry.
Did you throw some more, the last bit into the poor people?
The last bit again I threw it over to the grass, and we all cuddled up again. And anytime we'd look, there'd always be a little bit of food. Anytime we wanted a bit of food, it was always a little bit, just enough to keep us going, and we'd always throw a bit back. So it came to about 3 o'clock, and we were going, oh, it's going to get dark now at 4 o'clock. And we couldn't get out. And next we could hear the dogs barking. And I hear this, the sound in the snow.
Yeah.
And next minute, then the wall of the snow break through. And here wasn't the rescue crowd. And Dickie and Nanny was there. And the dog. And the dog came, and it was the to search and rescue people, and they'd grabbed us, and I said, come on, I'd throw all these kind of silver blankets around us and coats around us, and we'd cut our way back through the snow, and just as I was leaving, they said, come on now, we're going, come on, before it gets dark, because we're still a couple of fields in. And I said, no, wait a second. And I put my hand in my pocket and a small bit of bread, and I threw it back in by the fire, not into the fire, just by the fire, where the fire was lighting, for the poor people who died in the hungry grass field. And I went on. And it's funny, anytime I go past by that field there now, the grass is really, everything, the crops and all grow really well in that field. It's a good field now. The blackberries are good in it. The mushrooms always come up in it. And it's a happy field now. I think it was a sad field there for a while. But once I go past it now, I still always have to bring a bit of bread with me, just to remind me to throw it in, just for the poor people that died in that field.